Ever heard of a battle that turned the tide of a world war? Stalingrad wasn't just a battle. It was a turning point, a city under siege, a symbol of resistance. But it wasn't just about the Nazis and the Soviets. It was about human endurance, the will to survive, and the cost of victory. In this video, we're diving deep into the heart of Stalingrad, uncovering the stories of the soldiers, the civilians, and the decisions that changed the course of history. So, buckle up, because this isn't just a history lesson. It's a journey into the depths of human resilience. Stalingrad wasn't just another city on the map. It was a critical industrial hub and a strategic point for the Nazis. The city was home to numerous factories that produced essential war materials, making it a valuable target. Securing Stalingrad meant access to the Soviet Union's vital oil reserves in the Caucasus, a lifeline for Hitler's war machine. The oil fields were crucial for fueling the German military's operations across Europe and beyond. Hitler's obsession with capturing the city wasn't just about resources, it was also a matter of pride and propaganda. Stalingrad was named after Joseph Stalin, the Soviet leader, and capturing it would be a symbolic victory. It was a way to break Soviet morale and demonstrate the might of the Third Reich. The city's location on the Volga River also made it a key transportation hub, essential for moving troops and supplies. Stalin, on the other hand, couldn't afford to lose Stalingrad. For him, it was more than a city. It was a namesake and a stronghold. Losing the city would be a severe blow to Soviet prestige and could potentially turn the tide of the war in favor of the Nazis. His order was clear: defend the city at all costs. The Soviet forces were instructed to hold their ground, no matter the cost. The stage was set for one of the most brutal and pivotal battles in history. The Battle of Stalingrad would become a turning point in World War II. The fate of nations and the course of the war hung in the balance. The battle would see fierce urban combat, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. As the Nazis advanced into Stalingrad, the battle transformed into a brutal struggle for every inch of the city. The German forces, confident in their previous victories, were met with fierce resistance from the Soviet defenders. What was once a bustling urban centre quickly became a hellscape of shattered buildings and debris-laden streets. The relentless bombing campaigns had reduced the city to ruins, creating a nightmarish landscape for both soldiers and civilians. Soldiers from both sides engaged in fierce house-to-house fighting, battling for control of individual buildings and streets. The close-quarters combat was intense, with every room and every hallway becoming a potential battleground. The chaos of urban warfare brought the combatants into close quarters, where every room, every hallway, and every staircase could mean life or death. The soldiers had to navigate through the rubble, always on high alert for enemy ambushes. Snipers took positions in the ruins, turning the city into a deadly maze. They used the destroyed buildings to their advantage, picking off enemy soldiers from hidden vantage points. Every corner held the potential for ambush. The soldiers had to move cautiously, knowing that danger could be lurking around any turn. The echo of gunfire, the crash of collapsing structures, and the cries of the wounded filled the air. The constant noise and chaos made it difficult for the soldiers to communicate and coordinate their movements. Stalingrad became a nightmare of relentless combat, a place where survival was measured by the hour. The soldiers had to endure not only the enemy fire, but also the harsh conditions of the devastated city. Amidst the devastation, civilians found themselves trapped in the crossfire. They had to navigate the dangerous streets, trying to find safety amidst the chaos. Families huddled in basements, seeking shelter from the relentless bombardments. The constant threat of air raids and artillery fire made it difficult for them to find any sense of security. Their suffering was immense, as homes were reduced to rubble and lives were torn apart. The civilians had to endure not only the physical destruction, but also the emotional trauma of the war. Yet even in the face of such horror, the Soviet forces held their ground, fiercely defending what remained of their city. Their determination and resilience became a symbol of hope for the beleaguered civilians. The urban combat in Stalingrad was unlike anything the world had seen before. The scale and intensity of the fighting were unprecedented, leaving a lasting impact on the soldiers who fought there. It was a battle of attrition, a test of willpower and endurance. The soldiers had to dig deep within themselves to find the strength to continue fighting day after day. As the brutal urban warfare raged on in Stalingrad, the Soviet High Command was already planning a decisive counteroffensive. The city had become a symbol of Soviet resistance, and the stakes were incredibly high. Every street, every building, and every room was fiercely contested. The German Sixth Army, under the command of General Friedrich Paulus, had been making slow but steady progress, but the cost was enormous. The Soviets, under the leadership of General Vasily Chuikov, were determined to hold their ground at all costs. Known as Operation Uranus, The strategy aimed to encircle the German Sixth Army, cutting off their supply lines and trapping them inside the city. The plan was audacious and required meticulous coordination. The Soviet High Command, led by Marshal Georgy Zhukov and General Alexander Vasilevsky, meticulously planned the operation. They aimed to launch a pincer movement from the north and south of Stalingrad, converging behind the German lines. The operation was set to commence in November 1942, and the Soviets amassed a significant force for this purpose. The Soviet forces began their movement in mid-November 1942. The weather was harsh, with freezing temperatures and snow-covered landscapes, but the Soviet soldiers were well prepared for these conditions. The northern pincer, led by General Nikolai Vatutin, and the southern pincer, led by General Andrei Yeremenko, moved with precision and determination. The German forces, caught off guard by the scale and speed of the Soviet advance, struggled to mount an effective defense. The Soviet artillery pounded the German positions relentlessly, and the infantry followed with fierce assaults. The German Sixth Army, already stretched thin and suffering from supply shortages, found itself in a dire situation. The encirclement was completed by November 23, 1942, trapping over 250,000 German and Axis troops inside the city. The German High Command, initially dismissive of the Soviet capabilities, was now faced with a catastrophic situation. The trapped German forces attempted several breakout operations, but all were repelled by the determined Soviet defenders. The harsh winter conditions further exacerbated the German plight, with many soldiers succumbing to frostbite and starvation. By early 1943, the situation had become untenable for the Germans. As the harsh winter of 1943 gripped Stalingrad, the German Sixth Army found itself in an increasingly desperate situation. Encircled, under constant attack, and with supplies dwindling, their will to fight was eroding. By February 1943, it became clear that continued resistance was futile. General Friedrich Paulus, now promoted to Field Marshal, faced an impossible choice. On February 2, 1943, he surrendered to the Soviet forces, marking the first major defeat for the Nazi war machine. The cost of the Battle of Stalingrad was staggering. Nearly 2 million casualties were recorded between both sides, making it one of the bloodiest battles in human history. The once thriving city was now a landscape of ruins, broken buildings, and mass graves. Exhausted soldiers, both German and Soviet, bore the scars of months of relentless combat. The surrender at Stalingrad shifted the balance of power in World War II. It was a turning point that marked the beginning of the Soviet advance towards Berlin. The Red Army, bolstered by their victory, began a series of offensives that would eventually push the German forces back across Eastern Europe. The psychological impact of Stalingrad resonated deeply within the ranks of the Wehrmacht and the Nazi leadership, shaking their confidence and altering their strategies. Stalingrad had become more than just a battleground. It was a symbol of resilience and sacrifice. The aftermath of the battle left an indelible mark on the landscape and the people who endured its horrors. The ruins of Stalingrad stood as a testament to the brutal cost of war and the unyielding spirit of those who fought to defend it. The Battle of Stalingrad stands as a monumental chapter in the annals of World War II history. It was not merely a clash of armies, but a brutal contest of wills that reshaped the course of the war. The city's fall to the Soviet forces marked the beginning of the end for the Nazi war machine. Stalingrad became a symbol of Soviet resilience, a testament to the unbreakable spirit of its defenders who withstood unimaginable hardship and emerged victorious against a seemingly invincible foe. The significance of this battle cannot be overstated. It was the ultimate turning point that shattered the myth of Nazi invincibility and set the stage for the Red Army's relentless push towards Berlin. The psychological blow dealt to the German forces and their leadership was profound, altering their strategies and sowing the seeds of their eventual defeat. Stalingrad's legacy lives on, etched in the memories of those who fought and the generations that followed. It serves as a stark reminder of the devastating cost of war and the extraordinary human capacity for endurance and sacrifice. So there you have it. Stalingrad, a city that defied the odds, a battle that turned the tide of a world war. But remember, history isn't just about dates and facts. It's about the stories of the people who lived through it. And Stalingrad's story is one for the ages. Now, if you're still standing after that roller coaster of history, why not stick around for more? We've got plenty of other battles, figures, and events waiting to be explored. And don't forget to like and subscribe. So grab a cup of tea, sit back, and let's dive deeper into the rabbit hole of history together. Just remember, if you ever find yourself in a city under siege, hope for a miracle and a lot of vodka. Cheers.